Hi guys, there's a lot to cover, so I'm going to get straight into it. There is a common thread of information in terms of tsunamis related to Britain popping up in the news. So I've got this one from BBC saying British tsunamis happen much more often than thought. Didn't know that. Scientists had known that a huge wave had swamped large areas of what are now the British Isles, Norway, the Faroe Islands, Iceland, and Greenland more than 8,000 years ago. But discoveries on Shetland have found another two heretofore unknown tsunamis have hit more recently. Now the hunt is on to find what caused them. I'm not going to read the whole document, just wanted to kind of bring that to your attention. British tsunamis happen much more often than thought. And then you get the next report, which is blast off for rocket with first all British radar satellite. What's this satellite for? This satellite is to be tasked with monitoring the oceans. So we've got a theory around tsunamis happening much more often than thought, and then the first British satellite to monitor the oceans. Keeping on that same thread, we have the Thames Barrier to shut during the annual test closure. So the Thames Barrier will going up, and that will be on September the 23rd. Of course, the 23rd is a watch day, taken from Psalm 23 and various other references in the iPad Goat 2 video, in The Simpsons, various different medias. 23 could also relate to a time, which is 11, so could look at it in both ways, have to bear that in mind. You can see the iconic example of British design and engineering that protests 1.25 million people and a huge amount of important London infrastructure. It is built across a 520-metre stretch of river, and its annual test closure offers visitors the chance to see how it works and meet the teams who operate it. So they say it's an annual test closure. It is an annual test closure, but obviously, considering the year we're having, September the 23rd being a watch day, that being 1 year after the Revelation 12 sign, may be significant. So, in line with the fact that they've just launched a satellite to monitor the oceans and tsunamis happening more often than previously thought, it may be of a bit of suspicion that they're conducting the Thames Barrier closure on September the 23rd. Maybe it's just a coincidence. But then you've got the special relationship. The EU will stop warning the UK about space junk if there's no Brexit. So, in relation to all this monitoring the oceans, possible tsunamis, one of the possible causes of a tsunami is impact into the ocean. Whether that's an asteroid or whether that's made to be an illusion of an asteroid remains to be seen. But you've got plenty of news about NASA and various different organizations looking at ways of either mining asteroids or deflecting them. One of the reports here says NASA's DART spacecraft would strike a small asteroid and make a small change in the orbital speed of the target. The first ever mission to deflect an asteroid for planetary defense has entered its final design and assembly phase. The mission Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART, is scheduled to launch in 2021. It makes me think of why all the rush to space news all of a sudden. You know, you've got that, what I've just read, and then you've got the Donald Trump Space Force being announced this year. The Tiangong 1 Heavenly Palace, which looked like a dragon on radar, crashing down, and you have to wonder, why did it come down? It wasn't up there for a very long time. What was the purpose of it? It cost billions to make and billions to put up there, so why did it come down so suddenly? And then you've got reports of the International Space Station having a leak and some people suspecting it to be sabotage. They originally blamed it on a micrometeorite, but then later reports suggested that an engineer on the International Space Station had accidentally drilled a hole and tried to cover it with glue. You can believe that story if you want to or not. I'm not exactly sure how people that are trained to such a high level could make such a erroneous mistake, particularly if it's true. But I don't believe it is. Something else is going on up there, and we have to consider that even if you don't believe in asteroids, they are maybe planning something to maybe look like an asteroid impact. We've got loads of different references across media and across like the news and stuff like that. They're always bringing up these asteroids. Oh, this one approached the Earth and passed, and we didn't notice until it had passed. And there's been plenty of impacts into the atmosphere of what they call asteroids or meteors this year. We've seen the video of Russia and various different locations. Recently, there was another one. So maybe there's something that needs to be watched up above. Obviously, we're told in the Bible that we should be watching the moon, the stars, the sun. Look up for your redemption draws nigh. And that's all kind of hints and indications to looking up. Maybe something is coming from up rather than what's on our level. At the moment, there's an asteroid that NASA have measured, saying it's the biggest asteroid, or not the biggest, but it's a huge asteroid. It's called Palmer, which obviously stuck out for me because one of the topics I've been discussing is La Palma, Cumbre Vieja volcano possibly erupting on the Atlantic Ocean side, generating a landslide tsunami affecting the East Coast and the UK and other European countries, as well as the coast of Africa. Any country that has a coastline around the Atlantic, basically. So a lot of information in terms of space. Then you got the US Observatory, them closing that down and giving an explanation of to some form of security threat. There was someone suspected of criminal activity that posed a threat to local staff and residents, and for this reason, Aura was temporarily vacated. Aura temporarily vacated the facility and ceased science activities at this location. It just doesn't. It just doesn't pass the smell test for me. You know, why would you just create such an atmosphere of suspicion around a criminal that you was looking to arrest? I mean, you know, these things take place all the time, and they haven't necessarily had to shut down entire organizations. And even if they have, there's been some form of explanation as to what they're doing. And this just doesn't seem to, you know, stand up to scrutiny for me. So there's obviously something going on up there. The International Space Station having leaks, the Solar Observatory shutting down, the reports of some images being captured in front of the sun looking eclipse-like, the UK launching their first satellite to monitor the oceans, along with the EU saying that they won't inform the UK of any incoming space junk. At the same time, you know, you got the Chinese space station coming down earlier than it really should have. So what's going on up there is a question I have to ask myself. Today, round about now, there's supposed to be a third asteroid out of three that were passing by this week, passing by tonight. It's the largest of the three. There's no risk of impact according to this report, but the reason I bring it up is because it seems like we're definitely being shown signs up there. You know, three asteroids going by pretty close, pretty large. The third largest one going by tonight, which is obviously the 17th of September. Moving on to the 18th, we've got to watch on the 18th for potential things to happen. And there's other dates that I've looked at as well, which I am going to mention. But in reference to all these, if there is something going on up there, or they want us to believe that something is going on up there, I think maybe the Solar Observatory and the asteroid images might have been something connected to that. If the reports of, you know, them installing or creating some sort of large disk up there in order to kind of block out the sun is true, it may be, this is all just supposition, it may be that the technologies that they have, you know, the holographic technology, blue beam technology, and all the satellites they got up there could be used to create an illusion of some kind, maybe of an asteroid impacting the Earth or coming towards the Earth. It reminds me of a Simpsons episode. I'm not going to bring it up, but there's a part in the episode where the townspeople are looking up at the sky, and Lisa comes along. Obviously, they put a lot of emphasis on Lisa in The Simpsons, and she looks up and she's like, "What's everyone staring at? I don't see anything." But everyone else does see something, and it kind of makes me think of the deception from the Bible. A deception so strong that even the elect would believe it if it was possible. So could it be that at some point in the future there may be some sort of illusion like that, maybe associated with asteroids, maybe associated with alien invasions? I don't really cover those topics, but I am aware of them. And the elect would be able to see through that illusion, while others would be fretting and worrying about what's going on, men's hearts failing them and stuff like that. So it's just something to put on the table, but in reference to illusions and not being able to completely trust your eyes, because they've studied the human psyche, the human body for years. They are well ahead of us in terms of the knowledge that they know what can affect us, what affects our moods, you know, what can make us think of certain things. That's why they've got so much studies on advertising and stuff like that. When you see certain things on TV, you're supposed to have certain reactions. So there's been a lot of studies on these things, and it's possible that, you know, they could be able to create an illusion that most people would be fooled by. And it just made me think of optical illusions in kind of a basic way of understanding that what you see isn't always, what you should be seeing or what's there. These are some optical illusions. I mean, you can just look at them. This is completely flat. It's a 2D image, but the way it's done, it kind of gives you the impression that it's moving and that it's also kind of curved when it's not. So these are optical illusions. This is not flashing around. It's perfectly still, but your brain is making you think that this is moving, and it's very difficult to kind of force your brain to see it in any other way. Even these lines are all completely parallel to each other, all completely straight, but they look bent, twisted, off skew. Even this one, apparently tau A is the same shade as tau B, but looking at it, they look like two completely different shades. And that's just how much your eyes can deceive you sometimes. So, it's important to always question things, even things that you think you're definitely seeing, which is what I try to do on a regular basis. And that brings me on to Brexit. Brexit, we are almost at the deadline for Brexit. It's on the 29th of March 2019. It started, obviously, with the referendum on the 23rd of June. 623, 923, 911. It's all there. Brexit, I think, is a double meaning for Britain's exit. I don't know if that's from, I don't think that's just from the European Union. I think there's a bigger, sinister plan involving the UK in terms of Brexit. The BR is obviously the stand for Britain, and they've matched it with exit to form this moniker for the scenario that we find ourselves in, leaving the European Union. But if you take the word Brexit, like I do with quite a few words, I was listening to the news, BBC News, and they were talking about 6 months for the end of Brexit. And I was thinking, is it exactly 6 months? It can't be, because we've got until the 29th of March. So tomorrow would be 6 months and 11 days until Brexit. Obviously, I've looked at that as a 9/11. Breaking down the letters into numbers from the Brexit, I've separated them for the Britain part and for the exit part. 218 over here. Now, obviously, February the 18th is past, so it's not that. But I consider it could be 218, which is the 21st of August. And looking at the iPad Goat video, there's a lot of references to, well, we've picked up a lot of references to the 21st of August, 2 seeds, 1 seed, 8 in the middle, 21st of August, Hawaii received statehood, 21st of August, Big Ben stopped. Now I'm thinking this scene doesn't actually, maybe, that's a lot of double negatives in there, but I don't think it could be talking about New York. There's more connections, and I'm just going to say it could still be talking about New York, just as, disclaimer, but there's more connections here with London and Hawaii. Obviously, we pointed out the fact there's a volcano erupting on the Apple. That could be linked to Hawaii's Kilauea. With the 21/8, that could be linked to Hawaii statehood. Obama is from Hawaii. So, okay. Then we've got the pound coin down here. That seems to be the only reference to London, but it's a pretty clear there. That's a British pound coin. So, Hawaii and London referenced. We could look at the apple as New York. We could look at the apple as Israel, apple of God's eye. But it may not mean that. We keep those meanings there, but, it may not mean that at all. But considering the 21st of August on, let me get back to where I was here. Yeah. So considering we've got 6 months, 11 days from tomorrow, from the 18th, until Brexit on the 29th of March 2019, that kind of made me think maybe something happens tomorrow. But again, I have to consider that the Brexit broke down into 21/8, and at the same time we've got Hawaii with reference to 21/8. On the lunar calendar, that would be the 30th of August. Sorry, the 30th of September, August. So 30th of September would be the 21st lunar day and 8th lunar month, 8/21. That may be significant. On the 30th of August, another site that is watched in case of any, sabotage there is the Hoover Dam. That received dedication on September the 30th. And Aldwych tube station, a station I think is going to be involved in any sort of terrorist attack, considering they did a terrorist drill at the Aldwych tube station involving chemicals. I think that may be used in the actual terrorist event. The location being a drill, the location actually being the place of the real thing. Aldwych tube station was closed on August the 30th. So I'm thinking, maybe August 30th is also Blasphemy Day. That may have no connections, but when you're thinking about maybe something very significant happening on that day and it being Blasphemy Day, and you know how they like to mock and manipulate the Bible and God's word, it's possible they could do it on Blasphemy Day. All of this will be going on as the United Nations meets in New York. They're going to start trickling into New York from tomorrow, but the bigger names like Donald Trump and maybe Putin and others won't show up until next week, and next week encompasses the 30th. They may not be meeting all that week, could be ended by then, but the 30th is next week, so there's potential for some major events to happen after the UN meeting. People like the Pope could turn up, or Kim Jong-un, President Rouhani from Iran, obviously Donald Trump from the United States, Putin, Xi Jinping. Pretty much all the world leaders could be at this UN meeting. And considering we think they're all part of this plan, this drama that they're ready to put on for us, one final meeting before it all goes down, make sure everyone's, knows their role, make sure everyone's ready to do their thing. Again, are just looking and surmising, but could be significant. The US warns countries engaging in economic activities with Iran after November the 4th. Obviously, we know about this already, it's well talked about, but when we're looking at significant dates, November the 5th is one that I think of as well, because it's a day after the United States is instructing other countries not to buy oil from Iran, and Iran have said they will, retaliate, most likely blocking the Strait of Hormuz at that time, leading to some other events we see in the iPad Go-To video. In relation to North Korea, peace talks are going on, but there's other indications that suggest, as I said, the peace is an illusion. South Korea launches its first missile-capable submarine despite improved relations with North Korea. Japan successfully testing the missile interceptor off of the Hawaiian coast with the United States. That was 5 days ago. The US State Department approving the sale of 6 P-8 Poseidon sub-hunting planes to South Korea. That was 4 days ago. 1 second. I just need to disable ad blocker on this one. Oh no, here we go. Okay, Japan participating for the first time in exercises in the South China Sea. It's all suggesting that this whole peace thing is an illusion, and if we're looking at the iPad Go-To video, then we know that during peace, war comes. We're looking at the Bible, we know that when they're saying peace and safety, war comes. So that's what we're looking out for. NATO is obviously building up their presence in Eastern Mediterranean, just off the coast of Syria, in anticipation of a chemical weapons attack in Idlib. And obviously this has been reported for a while now, with Russia saying Britain's preparing chemical attacks, and people saying the white helmets are involved. A lot of misinformation being passed around in relation to that subject, but it seems pretty clear that they're going to use chemical weapons, whether that's on Assad's side or it's called the rebels, I guess, the rebel side. Chemical weapons are going to be used. It looks like, considering all the news about it being a bloodbath and being the worst part of the war since it started in 2011, looks like there could be a large number of people affected, which would obviously, spur a response from the Western nations, concerned as they are, moving in to help when it's not really about that at all. Everything obviously is planned, but a lot of focus is around oil as well. You have to consider that not all the countries are involved in this illicit plan to bring about destruction in the one world order. there could be countries out there that are resisting the movement and they need to be plucked out of the way. So it could be like that. I have to keep on considering all the aspects of this potential conflict that's coming up. In relation to Hawaii and the 21st of August on the lunar calendar being the 30th of September, on the Gregorian calendar, or the 21st lunar day in the 8th lunar month, they are allowing residents, or basically they're reopening portions of the national park, the volcanic national park. This is after they've already allowed residents to return back to Leilani Estates, at the same time as Fissure 8 is still showing signs of activity with its glow and the small volcano that's in there. And I just find it concerning that they're reopening next week. This report is published on September the 14th, so next week is obviously going to be encompassing again the 30th of September, which is the 21st lunar day in the 8th lunar month, which may be indicated from the apple here. We looked at the 21st of August. Nothing like that happened. We do have another 21/8 coming up on the lunar calendar, which something may happen, especially considering it may be linked with the UK and Brexit breaks down to 21/8. Not just that, but the full detail that I got from it was possibly 21/8 on the lunar calendar, which is the 30th of September on the Gregorian calendar, but the exit being maybe a time, 5:24. Again, the reference to 5 o'clock keeps coming up, whether that's in 24-hour format as the number 17 or 12-hour format as the number 5. It's heavily referenced throughout the IPEC GOAT video. I shouldn't really need to show you guys that, but I will. Just down here on Obama's foot, number 17, UK connected again. So as I said, these 17s and 18s, 21s and 23s, 22s, they could be a reference to time in 24-hour format, but mixed up as well. Could be times and dates. Have to consider it all, but a common thread keeps coming back to 5 o'clock for me and the UK. I've said it before in terms of the TFL. That's the time that rush hour kind of happens. If something was to happen at that time, that would be probably the maximum casualty effect that they could have. So 5:24. You could also look at that as 17:12, which is 12 minutes past 5 in the evening. Again, that would be more in the rush hour time, 5:24, early in the morning. I'm not sure if it was related to a water event, then that would be more significant. People are more likely to be asleep at that time, 5:24 in the morning. But just keeping this 5:24 or 5:12 depends. And then the 9:20, take away the 0, 9/11. So could it be 3rd September next week, 21st lunar day, 8th lunar month, around 5 o'clock in the UK, there's a 9/11 event. For Hawaii, again, the time reference that keeps coming up for me is 11 or 23. So that's what I say. In reference to my 11:30 video, I got attacked for that quite a lot, which is unusual for me because I make a lot of videos that talk about a lot of times and a lot of dates, a lot of locations and possible events happening, and I don't usually get attacked like that. But I did on the 11:30 video, so I'm looking at that as maybe it has some significance. So I'm sticking with Hawaii, 11:30. That would mean if there was a tsunami there, 2 o'clock on the west coast, 3 o'clock on the east coast, 5 o'clock in the UK. The time zones flow, and I think I'm going to stick with it. Whether that turns out to be morning or evening, we'll see. But there is, obviously, after the 30th of September, I think 2 days later, there's the event for New York. So we've got the potential for Hawaii and London on the 30th of September. And then on the 2nd of October, I think there may be an event. Now, I'm seeing here, at the end of the IPEC GO video, we've got the S here, and I'm just kind of putting the S to the side for the moment. But it's obviously a tsunami wave, and it's a big tsunami wave. You can see in the background how the waves are crashing down on the buildings, and the buildings are being forced backwards. Seems to be some reference to some form of explosion in the background here with all this white cloud. which again could relate to an underwater or underground explosion, which causes the tsunami. Again, I have to consider with all the talk about what's going on up in space, whether you believe it's space or not, the firmament, whatever you want to call it, whatever's going on up there could be related to, maybe a large tsunami event if there's an impact in the ocean. There may not be an impact in the ocean, it could just be an illusion, and it could be a nuclear explosion instead, as I said, considering all things. But down here, we've got these buildings here, which aren't the same color as the ones back here. They're highlighted, and I think that's for a reason, because they form 11 and 10, or 2 and 10, and I think that's referencing the 2nd of October. The reason I say the 2nd, I keep the 11th in mind as well. Don't put that one to the side. So if the 2nd passes, consider the 11th. But I say the 2nd because it's 2 days after Hawaii and London, and if something is, occurring around that time, it would make more sense for it to occur in quick succession, rather than having something happen on the 30th of September and then waiting 11 days until the 11th of October. So 1 and 0 down here, 1, 1, referencing that as 2, 2nd of October, tsunami wave. I'm assuming this will be New York. The wave is coming from the east to the west. If that is, a city that looks like it could be referencing New York or cities along the east coast, then that would make sense. If the wave was moving from the east to the west, you probably wouldn't have buildings on this side unless you're talking about like Asia, the Asian side, Taiwan, Philippines, China, but that's not what the 9/11 events are referring to, I don't think. So this is the Atlantic Ocean explosion. I mean, you can see how the wave kind of just comes up all of a sudden from this point and starts moving forward. So that could be connected to this, an explosion that causes the water to push up and move from the east to the west, which is Atlantic, East Coast tsunami, maybe referencing New York on the 2nd of October, 2 days after the Hawaii and London have been affected. If I want to corroborate the 1110, I can kind of find that in the letters on the board with 1, 2, 3, there's 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, and O. So again, 11 and O, O could be October, and the 11 could be 2, so 2nd of October possibly. And again, it's doubled because you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 11. Basically, the Z again is 11, and that could be referencing 2, as in 2nd of October. Z being the end, again, reference to 11. 2018 can add up to 11, so that's another way of looking at it. Lots of different potentials, so I hope you guys were able to follow all of that information. Basically, if there is any signs of, some sort of body coming from up above, consider it maybe an illusion, and nuclear detonations and not hallucinations, but holographic images could be used to, really force that illusion into the mind. Consider the mind is easily tricked, the eyes are easily fooled. So when you see things, just always question, just be critical. Critical thinking is a good thing. Some people will, refer to it as pessimism, but I think questioning everything is healthy to a certain extent. So with all that, you guys, keep watch tomorrow, just in case of anything. But I'm putting particular watch on the 30th of September, Britain and Hawaii, and on the 2nd of October for the East Coast. Obviously, if Hawaii is affected, that would also be the West Coast. So Hawaii, the West Coast, and London, 30th of September, New York, East Coast, 2nd of October. You guys have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and may the Heavenly Father bless you.